Welcome back to the Hot Diggity Dog Read to the Dog at Home series. And Dory seems to be still listening. Anyway, we're starting up at chapter 21. I'm sorry we missed you yesterday, but we'll catch up. Chapter 21. Humboldt had endured 3 weeks in captivity at the Baba Yaga's. No mysterious parcels with utensils for escape had turned up. Mrs. Gimmage and Itzhak felt very far away. Humboldt's salvation looked bleak. He had considered screaming for help through the small slit of a window, but he was so high up it would be useless. Besides, what would the Baba Yaga do to him? He tried to stay hopeful that Mrs. Gimmage and Itzhak would not give up looking for him. The only breaks in the long monotony of Humboldt's seclusion were Plouf's secret visits, and at least the meals were a little more edible, since Humboldt had steered the Baba Yaga toward those spells that improved her cooking. Humboldt was startled to hear a lorry screeching its brakes 3 stories below. Tilting his head to the side, Humboldt could almost see down to the street. He just caught a glimpse of a coal truck as it roared away. An idea popped into his head. He remembered seeing a note posted in the Baba Yaga's kitchen by Rook or by Crook Coal Company with a schedule of the coal delivery times. That could be his chance, his one escape route. The split second the coal man opened the door, Humboldt could plunge down the stairs and dash out the door. Brilliant! Absolutely brilliant! There was one thing, though. What if he was locked in his room when the coal man arrived? Well, he would just yell at the top of his troll lungs, yell till he was blue in the face. Help! Troll in distress! That would do the trick. His gray matter hadn't suffered any deterioration during his captivity. But what if the coal man couldn't hear him from 3 floors below? What if he simply dumped the coal in the basement, got in his truck, and drove away, never even knowing about Humboldt's existence? That was a grim thought. Obviously, there were more details to be worked out. He would have to deceive the Baba Yaga for one. But it was possible. It promised a crack of light in the devouring darkness. For the first time in days, he slept well with dreams of drinking tea with Mrs. Gimmage and Itzhak in an orchard of toffee-coated apple trees. All was not lost, for by any man's measure, Humboldt truly was an uncommon troll. Now we'll go to chapter 22. Humboldt was sitting at the top of the long staircase, his paw under his chin. The Baba Yaga was practicing her cape swirling. Her cape, black as leaf mold, was hitched up around her head, the hood obscuring her face. She swiveled her arm around and around as if it had a life of its own, then pointed herself toward the bottom of the stairs and rushed headlong down. The click of her boots on the stairs sounded to Humboldt like glass breaking. She hadn't taken 3 steps when she was suddenly yanked back, her cape snagged on the end of the banister. "I'm bigger in my cape, conspicuous, sir." She drew herself up and spat out the words like bitter seeds. She glanced at Humboldt. "But of course, if we ever leave the house together, well then, I mustn't be too conspicuous. No, I mustn't I?" For some unknown reason, Humboldt felt all quivery inside, and one lone tear began its journey down his cheek, followed by a host of others. He wiped his eyes madly with his paws, but couldn't seem to stop the flow. He hurried back to his room and stood by the small window, tears streaming down his face, making little damp trails in his fur. He dearly hoped and prayed Plouf would visit. His mouth quivered, his shoulders shook. He twisted his nightcap in his paws. His heart banged against his chest. He was a mess. It was as if his bag full of memories had all spilled over. He recalled a conversation with Mrs. Gimmich in their early days together, when she too had used the word conspicuous. On that afternoon, Humboldt had been telling Mrs. Gimmich all about his life under the bridge. The northeast piling of the Albert Street Bridge, he told her. Do you know it? Well, don't bother. It's the most dusty, dirty, dingy, smelly, smoky, foul, noisy nuisance of a place in all of London. I probably would have had the extremely bothersome bad luck to die there had I not taken things into my own paws, run away, and landed in your hedge. Life there was altogether despicable. Don't you mean despicable, or perhaps conspicuous? Suggested Mrs. Gimmich. I mean both, and more. It was despicably conspicuous, conspicuously despicable, and conspicably despicable. Humboldt pounced at the syllables like a cat after mice. It sounds as if life there was grim, Mrs. Gimmich volunteered, buttering his scone. Well, you needn't ever go back again. Oh, Mrs. Gimmich, if only she were here with him now. His eyes felt like soggy biscuits. Plunk! A fat tear rolled down his chin and hit the windowsill. Peep, peep! Poof! Landed on the little puddle that Humboldt's tear had made. She hopped sideways along the sill. Oh, Poof! I'm so happy to see you. You've no idea. What have you been up to? Plouf hopped up and down quickly, with her head cocked to one side, her brown eyes glistening. Really? Said Humboldt. You went all the way to Covent Garden? Were the worms especially delicious? Plouf nodded and hopped 3 times. Suddenly, Plouf stopped. A shadow fell across the room. Humboldt ducked, and Plouf trembled. Humboldt turned to look just as the Baba Yaga lunged at the windowsill. She seized Plouf and twisted her wing. Plouf cried out in distress as she tried to wiggle free. No, stop! Humboldt latched onto the Baba Yaga's leg and pulled and pulled. Plouf made a whimpering sound. It broke Humboldt's heart. He clutched at the Baba Yaga's leg, shouting, Let her go! Let her go! Plouf finally got free. She flapped awkwardly, banging against the window, rising clumsily into the air. The Baba Yaga fell backward onto the mattress, lost in the pile of her cape. She kicked furiously and then strode out of the room, muttering in musty Slavic, and headed toward the kitchen. Humboldt watched dear Plouf struggle through the air in crooked flight, one wing beating quickly, the other barely moving. His heart dropped as Plouf started to spiral down through the evening sky over the chimney pots. Humboldt listened as Plouf's plaintive peeps grew fainter and fainter until he could hear them no longer. A few of Plouf's nutmeg-brown feathers lay on the windowsill. The Baba Yaga stormed back into the room with a large tin in her hand. We need to fix that draft, she snickered. This is just the thing. She set the tin down. Window celery. Window celery? Humboldt asked, reading the label. I think you mean sealer. Oh, right. Don't get picky. She took out a putty knife and scraped it back and forth along the opening in the window, and the night sky was swallowed from view. And that's the end of that chapter, and we sincerely hope that Plouf will survive, but we'll have to wait and see. So thanks for listening, and cheerio from the happy to be with you. Hop on board. Cheerio. Bye-bye.